I mean, the title of this session is the future of trade. But can we talk about the future of trade without saying about the China? So I mean, when Wendy mentioned that there are only 25% of the American firms leaving the China, meaning that 75% of firms staying there. So these days but for Korean companies, we are much more the uncomfortable situation in that context. And private companies are confused about the changing environment. So what kind of the end game you see in the future trading system, in the relationship between the U.S., China, and EU?
Okay, I'll be very brief. I think one of the, at least hidden flaws of the IPEF is that it doesn't seem to take into account that RCEP is up and running, and RCEP contains incentives for deeper integration of Chinese firms into intra-Asian supply chains because of the rules of origin. Less so on the trade liberalization because there are lots of important exceptions that China made for trade with Korea and with Japan. But I think the RCEP really has to be taken into account in building that the trade and the supply chain pillar in IPEF, because it isn't an either or. There's no way that most of the countries in the region can decouple significantly from China.
Yes, I would like to add something. In my view, so long as the conflicts between state capitalism and market system would continue, actually there is no solution, no multilateral solution at all. Therefore, the future of multilateral trading system would be continuously actually crippling. And under this situation, as an alternative, the bilateral approach or plurilateral approach would be prevailing. That may lead to the block building process among like-minded countries, like IPEF, actually influenced by United States, and just as Jeff mentioned, actually RCEP or the Shanghai Cooperation Organization, actually initiated by China, actually like-minded countries under Chinese influence or something like that.
Currently, the environment is not particularly conducive to thinking about making deals between those three players. But China has requested accession to the CPTPP. The EU did negotiate a comprehensive agreement on investment with China, which has a whole bunch of provisions in there which actually deal with these contentious issues. So in a sense, I think these are signals that it's not impossible to think about actually negotiating agreements on some of these key areas on the industrial policy side, which essentially has always been the bread and butter of negotiating in the WTO context. So I think, you asked what is the role of Korea, middle powers in this. I think it's really kind of to push in that direction and to make, to show that there actually is scope for getting to yes potentially, and just supporting that with like-minded countries. Because clearly, on a bilateral basis, we've seen already agreements take place on a number of these issues, and you really want to then make them trilateral and then ultimately, bring them into the multilateral context.
I really hope to see, we used to see US, EU, and Japan start to form some kind of group and discuss about the industrial policy and subsidies. And they move forward a little bit, and then they just stop doing this. So we hope to see many more kind of plurilateral efforts led by quite advanced countries, and then maybe middle power countries can join, or middle power countries can themselves make a group. And in Geneva, Mr. Choi knows that there are some kind of group at the WTO composed of middle power countries to move ahead of the WTO system. So I think we want to see more and more of that kind of activities.
In Geneva, there is actually system supporters group, multilateral trading system supporters group, which are joined by many middle power countries, including Korea. But this middle power group could not design the course of actions for the future of multilateral trading system unless big powers like U.S., EU, and China would reach agreement. I think it's US, EU, and Japan can continue to discuss on subsidy questions which were discussed a couple of years ago, but they stopped discussing on that particular issue because of not Chinese joining on that discussion process. Without China only discussing among Western world, that doesn't work.